Then we talk about the symptoms, the incubation time, the time from the bite of the malaria until you see the first symptoms. It's approximately 12 days. This is important when we go to tropical countries, for example, and we come home and let's say some days later, some weeks later, we experience fever. We have to talk about a malaria infection. This is very important to know that this is, malaria does not appear immediately, it takes some time. When the infection is there, you get fever, as I told you, over 40 degrees. You feel really weak, sick, due to this anemia, lack of blood, lack of red blood cells, which are actually eaten up by these malaria parasites. We see intestinal problems like diarrhea, cramps, whatever. People really feel sick, and of course also low blood glucose. And now we come to these two really severe points. Okay, I can tell you without these pictures. The renal perfusion, the kidneys are affected, so you can die from lack of renal perfusion, renal failure, and this is also very severe. The central nervous system is affected. The people get into sleepiness, paralysis, coma, and in the end death, because the vessels in these, the brain vessels are destroyed by these malaria parasites. So it's really a severe disease, and we should really try to prevent it as best as possible. As for prophylaxis, first of all, clothing is important. White, thick material to prevent these mosquitoes from biting. And we can use repellents. DDT is still used in some countries, and these pyrethroids. These are substances derived from chrysanthema flowers. Chrysanthema flowers defend against parasites, of course, by producing these. And the nets are treated with these pyrethroids. They are really dangerous to the mosquitoes. To human beings, they are not dangerous. It's really good to have. Also possible is the chemoprophylaxis by tablets. There are some substances you can use in tablets to avoid malaria infection. And of course, this is the topic we are talking about tonight, these bed nets. We can use nets hanging around the bed to prevent these mosquitoes from biting. They contain usually repellents, as I said, these pyrethroids. What was also attempted in the 1960 years was the complete eradication of these parasites by using DDT in high amounts. First it showed to be really successful, but then it came out that the parasites got resistant against this, and that DDT augmented in the chain of nutrition and got more and more, even in human beings. So it was a threat to environment, and it had to be stopped, I think, in 1970. And as for vaccination, there's no vaccination available so far. They are trying to get to develop one, but I think in the next 10 years there is no vaccination possible against malaria. As for the treatment, first of all, it is important to keep the circulation stable, for example by using infusions. Then you have to support the renal function, to lower fever with paracetamol. Aspirin is not so good because it influences the blood flow, so you don't use this. Paracetamol is very good. And then you have drugs right now that are able to eradicate the parasite. Here we have the names of these drugs, especially artemisinin is really successful in eradicating these parasites from the body. This is what we have in our countries. Luckily, the so-called developed countries, we have good medical service, and if we have malaria, it's absolutely possible to eradicate the parasites completely from the body. The people in Africa don't have this, unfortunately, so prophylaxis, these nets are really the most important for them. As for the research on malaria, we have unfortunately the situation that the pharmaceutical industry does not really do research on this because it's not so profitable, of course. these people in the poor countries, they don't have so much money to buy expensive pharmaceutical drugs or vaccines against malaria. That's why the industry spends more money in the so-called fight against loss of hair and erection problems and in the research on malaria, which is somehow a shame, but that's the way it is. I think there could be some vaccination. There are really some governmental programs in research of vaccination, but I think in the next 10 years there will be none. So we really have to do prophylaxis, for example, with bed nets. Then we are talking about the economical impact of malaria. As you can imagine, when people are sick all the time and don't feel well, the economy is also down. And there are researchers on the economy that say that malaria is the main reason for the bad economical situation in these African countries. So there's no way for them to get up their economy if they don't really deal with malaria. Malaria causes poverty in the end. So it's really important also for the economical sector to fight malaria. Of course, AIDS is also a big issue in these countries, makes the situation even worse. So, as a conclusion, fighting malaria brings up the economy of these countries. Okay, here we have three boys with showing off their malaria nets. You see, it's really big. And I think this picture is really popular. I've seen it a lot in these malaria nothing but net campaign photographs. Okay. Let's see if it's going well again. Then we have, of course, other tropical diseases transmitted by insects. So the malaria conducting mosquitoes are not the only insects that can be prevented by these nets. We have also leishmaniasis, very not so well known perhaps, but we have also 2 million infections per year of this really severe illness. Then we have dengue fever, transmitted by Aedes mosquito species, 50 million infections per year, that's quite a lot. We have the yellow fever, perhaps you know this, it's really severe. We have the chikungunya fever, it's occurred even in Italy because we have the climate change, as you know, and this makes it easier for these parasites and mosquitoes to even go to Europe and do their evil work. West Nile fever, sleeping disease is on the run again, which ends always deadly without any medical treatment. And the treatment we have for this sleeping disease dates back to the 1920s, so it has a lot of side effects. And it's really a bad situation for these people. And all these diseases, illnesses can be prevented by using these bed nets. So it's really a good thing to have such a bed net. Then the Nothing But Nets campaign itself, which is launched by the UN Foundation and JCI. Perhaps some words to the UN Foundation. It was founded itself in 1998. It's really independent. There's nobody who can influence these people, no industry, no government. It's just an independent organization that wants to support the goals of the United Nations. For example, the recognition of human rights, bringing the nations closer together, and of course, the fight against diseases like malaria. JCI, the history you probably know, was founded in 1920 in St. Louis, Missouri. Right now we have 200,000 members worldwide. I think it's the biggest organization of young people in the world. And also they have the goal to make the world better, a better place, to create positive change. And, which is really important, JCI is the only organization outside the UN that is allowed to wear the emblem of the United